welcome to MindShock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Emma FILLIPOFF series. This is episode 6, Emma's Circle. And this is probably going to be the most mind-shocking episode yet. This is taking a look at the people in Emma's circle much wider than many would have one believe. There seemed to be quite a few people who knew her and were around her, as well as seemingly an endless list of stalkers. I mean, I do not believe I recall another true crime missing persons case like this where there was not one, not two, not three, possibly not even 4 or 5, but more stalkers. I mean, how is this even possible? I mean, one could say the average woman probably goes through 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe even 4 or 5 stalkers in a lifetime. But simultaneously? That's kind of weird. So we will be examining all of this and more in typical mind shock fashion with logic and reason at the forefront. As always, if you want to help support the podcast, help keep up awareness in true crime cases, be it missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, or others, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications if you're not getting them. Just like and comment on more videos. That's how the YouTube algorithm works. If it's still not working, just go to youtube.com/mindshock. Make sure you check out the community tab. I do post updates on there as well as scheduling. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Get access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. Okay. So, I was actually sent an email with some really mind-shocking information and connections in this case. I mean, just the sheer amount of connections between people in Emma's circle, as well as sightings, either rumored or, however, some people like to believe that they're confirmed. As of yet, I don't think any sightings are on the record official as confirmed, but obviously we would have no way of knowing whether they were real or not. I mean, unless you were there, you don't really know if she was there or not. So a lot of this hallucinatory goofery is from so-called true crime aficionados who pretend that it couldn't have been her no matter what at any of these locations, or pretend that this all had to be a mental health episode. Which is really, really weird because there seem to be documented instances of stalking here. So if this isn't in, or at least not all of it would be in her head paranoia. And what I've brought up since the very beginning, there's no magical Dungeons and Dragons spell protecting anyone who's having mental health issues, drug issues, whatever it may be. Such a spell does not exist in this world, and furthermore, they might actually become a more likely target of foul play and bad actors, so to speak. So I don't know why so many goofs just write off the fact that she might not, even if she does have mental health issues, this here might not be specifically a result of a mental health episode, or even if it is, that doesn't mean that there's not a stalker here that might have somehow harmed her, or there's a real stalker, which is explaining her behavior, possibly more than one or even more than 2 or 3 stalkers, and someone else harmed her. Again, this is mind shock. We don't fall for silly false dichotomies, false trichotomies, false quadratities, or any kind of logical fallacies of any kind. So we are looking at all of this logically, objectively, and neutrally. If you haven't checked out the previous episodes of the Emma FILLIPOFF case, check them out. This is, of course, the most logical, comprehensive, exhausting podcast on the case, like all the series here on MINDSHOCK. We go over every avenue, every theory, leaving no stone unturned. So before I get to the email that I was sent with all of these just mind-shocking connections between people in Emma's circle and also other stalkers, there's a very interesting theory that was just posted 6 months ago or so on Find Emma FILLIPOFF subreddit by Consistent Inside 1577. Theory on disappearance of Emma FILLIPOFF. My theory on disappearance of Emma FILLIPOFF and how someone might have taken advantage of her paranoia and fear to take her away based on her activities and locations before her disappearance. Hear how I think it happened. The theory begins with the fact that Emma is someone who has mental issues and is prone to delusion and paranoia. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but this is what this individual is writing here. And after or before coming to Victoria, she might have maintained a secret connection with an individual, and this individual was an internet predator. And this may explain why she constantly visited to the library, even on the most distressed day. The day in which she disappeared, probably to use the computer to secretly contact this person. And her mysterious phone call using a stranger's phone at Sandpiper, or why she suddenly deleted all her social media. Now, this isn't talked about enough in relation to this case. So apparently there is a report that she used someone's phone. I don't remember going over this. Welcome, the Court of Public Opinion. I know, I only have streams running for maybe 15 to 20 hours out of the day. I gotta step my game up, I really do. MINDSHOCK needs to just have way more streams going. I don't remember if the Sandpiper phone call for the stranger was 100% confirmed. We can get into that later. I mean, if anybody in the chat knows about the phone call, I saw that briefly. I don't remember where. But let's continue. Here, so also, yeah, I mean, and I don't know if it was confirmed, did she herself delete all her social media? I don't know if anybody explored that angle either. For convenience, I will call this individual Predator. During the process of getting to know more about Emma, this Predator happened to know about the fact that Emma has a paranoia of being followed by stalkers. After learning about this fact, the Predator decided to take advantage of her paranoia to kidnap her. he might have played a part in worsening it day by day and then pretended to help by offering to rescue her from the stalkers, but in reality, all he wanted is coming to kidnap her. After having her paranoia worsen day by day by this predator, she became more and more paranoid and distressed. Facing so much pressure, she had two choices: asking her mother to come to help or accepting this predator's offer. Days before her disappearance, she went back and forth between these choices and eventually went with the second one. Between the time of the last two phone calls and the time she went to the Chateau Hotel, she might have visited the library to make an arrangement to be picked up by this predator on Pandora Street. This was why she was mostly seen on Pandora Street in plain sight all morning of December 28th. On December 28th, first she went to the van, probably to leave something valuable to her behind, and thought that it would be safer in the van than in her hand while being away temporarily or to take something necessary with her. Then she followed the predator's request to buy a prepaid credit card, which the predator later used to make a distraction and frame someone for her disappearance. After that, she went to Pandora Street to wait for the predator to pick her up, but the predator didn't see any chance to pick her up. After standing there for the whole morning without being picked up, she went to the library to contact this predator, and the plan was changed. The new pickup location was now Douglas Street. This was why she was mostly present at Douglas Street from afternoon to evening, and even though the website says she was still present at Pandora Street after going to the library, I think this could be a witness's mistake because all of this is just around 1 hour. After standing around Douglas Street for a while without being picked up again, Emma went to the store to buy a prepaid cell phone to use in the journey with this predator. The phone was her own idea and not a part of the plan. This is why it has never resurfaced. Wow, this person really thought this theory out. I mean, true or false or varying degrees of truth. Again, let's not fall for false dichotomies or black and white logical fallacies. It's very possible some of this theory is true. Not necessarily 0 or 100% of it. Then she went back to the shelter, possibly to rest, but ran away after being informed about her mother's arrival because she'd already arranged to be picked up by the predator, so she went back to Douglas Street again. While waiting for the predator in Douglas Street, she saw a taxi parked near her. With the fear of being taken away by the imaginary stalker, and we'll get into that because this stalker might not even be imaginary, and the cold of the rain, she thought it would be a good idea to temporarily take shelter in this taxi for a while continuing to wait for the predator in Douglas Street by pretending to go somewhere. She purposely chose a location that is far away, like the airport, so that the price would be high, so she could later use the excuse of not having enough money to end the trip. See, this is a very interesting theory because this would explain, because she does have the money, so, because that's one of the variables in the case a lot of people are just going back and forth over. If she's just taking shelter in the taxi, she doesn't really want to pay, even though she has the money, and there was no real intention to go to the airport, this actually does explain that, regardless of whether the stalker is real or not, or the predator is real or not. There could be another reason why she wants to do this. After being brought back to Douglas Street where she was picked up, she continued to stay in the taxi because that's all she actually wanted, taking shelter in the taxi. But after being disturbed by the radio, she left the taxi to continue standing in plain sight in Douglas Street again to wait for this predator to pick her up. At 6:15, Dennis Quay saw Emma and approached her at Douglas Street. After probably being overwhelmed with fear of being caught by the imaginary stalker and losing her patience of waiting for the predator, she walked away with him to seek comfort and eventually ended up in front of the Empress Hotel. Standing there losing patience of waiting and not knowing what to do next, she was later questioned by the police and released. And I'm not saying that the police's mental assessment is trustworthy, but I think the police let her go because her mind, although was paranoid and in distress, was probably more functional than she seemed to be. The reason why people think she was more psychotic than she was is probably because most of her behaviors seemed unexplainable when in fact they are explainable. After that, I think that's a good point, actually. After that, I think either she was picked up by the predator somewhere near the Empress Hotel, or she went back to Douglas Street and was picked up, or she went to Colwood and got picked up there. But this is unlikely, in my opinion. Side theories. Emma left her valuable belongings behind because she thought it would be safer in the van than with her while being away for a while. The prepaid credit card, which is the very first thing that she bought in the morning, and the only thing she didn't have any good reason to buy or own, happened to be the only thing that has ever resurfaced. This could be a hint that the prepaid credit card was part of the plan. It could have been used to frame someone for Emma's disappearance. It worked like a tempting bait or trap that was placed on the road. It would instantly make anyone who happened to pick it up and use it look suspicious and guilty. I mean, that's a good point. That is a good point. It could have also been used to distract people and make them think that she went to Colwood when it might not have been the case, but this is uncertain. Emma often stood in the corner of the street or very close to the road, sometimes one step away from stepping into the street. On the day she disappeared, to be more visible to the predator, or crossed the street and glanced at cars to look for him, Emma took off her shoes to relieve the anxiety and stress that she had. The green shirt guy may have left his fingerprints on the poster that he left behind, and he didn't cover his face. He didn't seem to care about hiding his identity. This makes me think he's not directly involved, but I fear that someone might have paid him to act like that, to distract the investigation. Wow. I don't even know if we went over that theory before. He was specifically paid, and he knows he had nothing to do with it, so he was happy to be paid and do that. Interesting. I'm not personally convinced that she went to Colwood because it seems physically impossible to walk that far on barefoot, and the police don't seem to be interested in the area, but I think it's still possible that she went there, and the area should be searched carefully. I have sent my theory to some podcasts to see their opinions. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting theory, and I'm going to piggyback off of it slightly while going over this email I was sent. But first, I mean, let's look at some, Yeah, I mean, the reason why I find this theory kind of compelling is I think a lot of the stalkers were real. Possibly not the exact day, but in the past, there's some documentation which we will be getting into. But what if there could have been online communication, which is why she went to the library a lot? And one of the real stalkers could have also been pretending to be some new guy that was super nice that was going to help her, but it's really one of the stalkers pretending to help her get away from the stalkers. That's where I'm leaning when reading this theory. Consistent Insight also followed up with this post, which actually that's strange because it kind of goes off what I just said, but I didn't know this post existed until now. Thank you for reading my theory and leaving criticism. I wrote this theory in a hurry, and there's a lot of things I will improve to write a more detailed theory. Firstly, every piece of info that I use is absolutely accurate, can be found easily. Second point, I have never said having paranoia would make you a good target for being kidnapped. Emma might have been a target before she had paranoia. And again, I'm hesitant to even use the word paranoia. Is it paranoia or is it simple awareness? Is it just awareness and anxiety that anybody would have in that situation? She might have had a relationship with the predator for a reason that I don't know long before he knew about her paranoia. When I said learning more about her, I meant learning more about her by talking with her. Having a relationship with an internet predator as a woman is in itself a dangerous situation. It doesn't matter whether you have paranoia or not. It's just a matter of time before you're taken away. Having a paranoia of being followed by stalkers at the same time just makes the situation worse, because a woman when having a fear of being followed by a stalker will seek company and protection from a man, pushing her towards the predator more. Well, also, what if this predator was pretending either actually a woman or pretending to be a woman to gain her trust more? If you have a paranoia of being followed but having no relationship with predator, then you are okay. What would he have done if her paranoia wasn't there? Obviously, using the normal way like grooming would have taken him a longer time to do. Your point about more visible to the stalker, this is very easy to answer. It was because Emma hiding and running are probably just temporary solutions. Probably in her mind, this stalker can still get her no matter where she hides. All she actually wanted is someone's company and protection to leave Victoria. This is why she called her mom to come to accompany her to get her out of Victoria, even though she could leave Victoria anytime on her own. About William and Colwood, I have listened to his story long ago, and I'm going to tell anybody to believe him or not. I'm not going to tell anybody to believe him or not, but to me, there are a couple things that are suspicious that make me doubt his story. Your point about why it took so long, for now I can only answer that it probably has something to do with her sudden change of plan. Bottom line, do I think she was kidnapped? Yes. Sadly, the facts are overwhelming. There was definitely a predator that was involved from the beginning. If you have questions, then pick one. Okay, I don't have time. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, so I think there's an individual here. This might be the same person who emailed me, but I'll get into this email now. Hello, MindShock crew. I watched your podcast on Emma Fillipoff, and I felt I could help with info nobody seems to talk about by sharing it with you. Emma arrived in Victoria September 2011 and stayed with Mika. Now, Mika did that interview on the One podcast, her former roommate. Some people thought it was suspicious, some people didn't. So Emma arrived Victoria 2011, stayed with Mika and her boyfriend, Chris. After 4 months in December, Mika and Chris broke up, and Mika took off to the Philippines until either October or possibly July, as it says on her LinkedIn. And Emma moved into the next suite in the same building. Mika continued to keep tabs on Emma while she was away, as she knew people who knew Emma. Even though Mika is a lawyer now, she hasn't been much help in the disappearance of Emma. You'd think she would help Shelley get the dialogue from the police interaction with Emma, but no. She appears to resent Emma and wasn't happy with her stay with them, as you can hear her bitter undertones in her interview. Was there trouble in Mika's paradise? Quite possibly. Emma disappeared 3 days after Mika emailed Emma to meet up, something to think about. Emma stayed at the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter. Keep in mind the Kool-Aid Society runs all the shelters in Victoria until about mid-February, when she began staying... Oh, wow, I got this all wrong. So this was Michaela, not Mika. There's a Mika and a Michaela. Wow, okay. What a coincidence. Man, how many people have the same names? Because there's a couple other ones in this case as well. This is getting quite mind-shocking even for me. Yeah, this is getting really, really strange. So, Michaela and Mika, both names spelled starting with Mika. Huh. Wow. Okay. So let's go over this again. So Emma arrived in Victoria September 2011 and stayed with Michaela and her longtime boyfriend Chris. After 4 months in December, Michaela and Chris broke up. Michaela took off to the Philippines until October or July. Emma moved into the next suite in the same building. Michaela continued to keep tabs on Emma while she was away, as she knew people who knew Emma. Even though Michaela is a lawyer now, she hasn't been much help in the disappearance of Emma. You would think she'd help Shelley get dialogue from the police interaction with Emma, but no. Michaela appears to resent Emma and wasn't happy with her stay with them, as you can hear in her bitter undertones in her interview. Was there trouble in Michaela's paradise? Quite possibly. Now, again, and just in terms of basic motives, not necessarily this case, but just cases across the board, love triangles are typically one of the top causes of any kind of attacks and murders. Right? Love and money. I mean, those are the two that everybody keeps coming back to. Some kind of jealousy, revenge intersecting with these things. So, would it be that surprising? Now, we also don't know what their relationship was up front. Was Michaela really nice to Emma to her face? And was there something going on behind the scenes with Emma and Chris? Who knows? But Emma disappeared 3 days after Michaela emailed Emma to meet up. Okay, so she stayed at the shelter until mid-February, when she began staying with Mika, someone she had met before and knew of. Mika literally just graduated high school in Duncan, BC in 2011, and somehow found herself staying in Victoria, taking in Emma. So, I'm guessing that wasn't explicitly explained. Emma and Mika were planning to travel to possibly California or Arizona, but plans changed not long after Mika introduced Emma to Connor. Mika moved back in with her parents in Duncan until traveling by herself, while Emma spent the month of May staying and working for Victoria's famous slumlord millionaire, Robin. So Robin Kimpton apparently has a lot of dilapidated properties, City Hall issues. I mean, this is being talked about all over the internet as well. Okay, so Emma spent the month of May staying and working for Robin Kimpton. Huh. I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere else. So this guy's Victoria's famous slumlord millionaire. Okay, this is really weird. So then there's this other guy, Connor. So Mika introduced Emma to Connor. Emma is spending the month of May staying and working for Robin Kimpton at the 760 Hotel on Queens, but also spent a lot of nights on Connor's boat during the summer of 2012. Was Mika upset by this? Yes, as she admits. Connor stayed on a boat with his parents at the Inner Harbor, downtown Victoria, and Emma would either stay with him or the shelter during that time. Okay, is everybody following? Again, I don't know where this individual got all of this information, but if this is accurate, this is literally the most mind-shocking info that has been revealed in this case thus far. Is she really working and staying with this slumlord millionaire of Victoria, British Columbia, who has these dilapidated properties, and apparently people are talking about issues with that at City Hall? Court of Public Opinion states it's kind of confusing. We're just getting started, believe it or not. We're just getting started. But is this a pattern here? Now, again, obviously, I'm not saying Emma was responsible for any of this. But if all these guys are taken by her, that might upset these guys' girlfriends. Now, again, this doesn't mean Emma initiated anything. If this is these guys' fault, this could cause issues with these females that Emma is friends with. Is there a pattern here? Because let's go through it real quick again, make sure everybody's on the same page and following here. Emma arrives in Victoria, September 2011, stays with Michaela and her longtime boyfriend, Chris. 4 months later, Michaela and Chris broke up, and Michaela left to the Philippines. Emma moved into the next suite in the same building. Now, what does that mean? If her and Michaela aren't friends, why would she be getting a suite in the same building? And so this person is saying that Michaela continued to keep tabs on Emma. I don't really know what that means, because she knew people who Emma knew. Were these tabs, does this have something to do with Emma and her former long-term boyfriend, Chris, who broke up? Okay, now we move on to, well, the last point with Michaela is Michaela did email Emma 3 days before Emma disappeared. So does this mean there's an issue with Michaela, or there's an issue with this whole circle of people that Emma knew? So then Emma is staying either at the shelter or with this young girl who just graduated high school, Mika. So her and Mika have plans to travel to California, Arizona. But Mika introduced Emma to Connor. Is Connor Mika's either boyfriend or love interest, possibly? So for whatever reason, doesn't state here, Mika moved back with her parents. Does this mean there was a falling out? I don't know. What is Connor's role here? So Emma now finds herself staying and working for slumlord millionaire Robin Kimpton at the 760 Hotel on Queens, but also seems to be spending nights on Connor's boat. Mika said she was upset by this. What does this all mean? Is everybody following? So this may have been two similar situations with both Michaela and Mika. Coincidentally, their names almost identical as well. Court of public opinion. I believe this would have been from the interview with Michaela. I'm not going to go over the whole interview now, but I believe she said that in the interview. I don't know the source. I think that was sourced from her own interview. So either she lied about it or she really did do it. Sounds sketchy, the rich guy. Rich guys always sound sketchy. So, I mean, I do wonder if this slumlord guy has connections to other crime or whatever. Yes, at this time, she's still alive. So, if we're all on the same page here, this is about to get even crazier. So, Connor has a friend. Let's call him Jack, who has an ice cream truck. So apparently, this is Connor's friend, and he parked this ice cream truck next to Redfish Bluefish, where Connor worked for him that summer. Emma worked at the Redfish Bluefish beside Connor, and they remained close. Okay, so apparently Mika is the one who introduced Emma to Connor, and they ended up working together at the same restaurant. Connor's friend has an ice cream truck parked beside the restaurant. Emma said she would return to work in February, but there are rumors she was unofficially told not to return because the owner of Redfish and another Redfish co-worker, their wives were not fond of Emma. Jealousy ? So, if this information is all true, are we seeing a cycle here of just men being infatuated with Emma and either acted on it or not, maybe even with or without her knowledge? And this is causing issues for a lot of people. Again, let's just go over basic FBI statistics. When women are met with foul play, or females, it's usually at the hands of someone known to them, either boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, friend, co-worker, someone known to them, not a random stranger. The other thing, we're seeing a pattern in this circle, if this is all true. Again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I do not claim anyone is innocent or guilty. This is MINDSHOCK, where the motto is, the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. This is basically an email with all of this information that has been sent to me. I don't know whether any of this is true. Some of it clearly is, because this has been corroborated with interviews. But a lot of this is the first time I'm seeing this. After Emma disappeared, there are a lot of questions that aren't being answered or overlooked. For example, Shelley stated she was in an ABC taxi at 9 p.m. and headed straight to the Sandy Merriman shelter from Victoria International Airport and arrived there at 11 p.m., eventually staying at the Quality Inn. One little problem. That's only a 25-minute drive, and cabbies always speed, so maybe even less. Where did that hour and a half go? What happened? Also, there is no such cab company called ABC Taxi. And when you look it up, it has false addresses that show no sign of a cab business. Keep in mind, a few months after Emma disappeared, the police warned the public about a fake cab driver sexually assaulting women late at night as they leave bars. So, who is this cab driver? What? This is the first I've heard of this. So, what is this person insinuating? That Shelley, Emma's mother, got into a fake cab? But why would she not disclose this unless she did and the police told her not to say anything about it? But what are the chances? Or did she get into that cab on purpose because maybe there was some kind of a lead on Emma, or they said, I mean, has there been some kind of communication that Shelley's mother has not disclosed publicly? Maybe someone who knew Emma, maybe a shady cab driver, but it is curious that supposedly there was official police documentation of them warning up specifically about fake cab drivers. That's kind of weird. I mean, this case is just really, really weird. So, has Shelley's cab driver ever been identified, and is there missing time? Okay, next point here from this email. Then there is Dennis Quay, stalker question mark. So this is the guy that she walked with that day. Very likely, Mika said she received an email from Emma over the summer that some dude was making her uncomfortable in the library. And since Julian Huard wasn't in Victoria until September 2012, that leaves Dennis Quay, who admitted to watching Emma in the library but didn't approach her because she looked busy. Now, this is really bonkers. Did he say he saw her in the library that same day and then coincidentally he also runs into her in the street? I mean, how many of these guys coincidentally are running into Emma the day she disappears? Does anybody find this strange that not only does she have 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 or 5 stalkers, but at least 2 of them are running into her the day she disappears? This is kind of weird. Does anybody else find this kind of weird? This seems kind of weird. I don't know how to rectify this. And what's weird is a lot of these stalkers, if they're stalkers, Dennis Quay and Julian Hurd, they're admitting quite a lot. Like, coincidentally, this guy's going across the whole country of Canada and runs into her? I mean, this is wild. And just claims it's all coincidence. You know what's kind of weird, too? Why did they even admit to running? Why did Julian admit to running into her? Unless he thought people could identify him and he didn't want to lie about it because he thought that would look even sketchier. Kim Bordage said Dennis bumped into Emma on the corner of Burdett and Douglas, and they walked for an hour to Government Street and Milestones Restaurant Empress Hotel. Couple problems there. One is the distance is only a 3-minute walk. So what took so long? Question mark. Arguing? Question mark. Dennis even pretended to jump in traffic. Why? Question mark. I don't know the source of this. Did he admit to that, or did Kim Bordage, the researcher on this case, just say that? All right, I gotta fix. It seems like there's a little bit of a lag. I'm gonna fix this lag, so I'm gonna take a 1-2 minute break. I might have to reset the connection. So we're doing a 1-2 minute break. I'll be right back after that. Okay, sorry about that. I think it should be working now. Technical difficulties. Court of public opinion said regarding the taxi driver, I'm assuming this is in reference to, that would make sense. Yes, a parent will meet up with anyone, do anything. If she was pretty, though, these uncomfortable moments are 10 times a day. It's not weird. It's what women go through. Yeah, I mean, not just pretty, though, especially if, as she was described, as a kind soul. I mean, it seems like pretty much anybody would have liked her. So, yeah, if that was the case, I mean, it's just so weird because we don't really know the character or motivations of any of these people around her. So they could have also been nice people trying to help her. We have no way of knowing this. Like which guy's the evil stalker and which guy's the guy trying to help her. We have no idea. So this is about to get really weird. There's so many more mind shocks coming here. So Mika said she received an email from Emma over the summer. I don't know if she produced that email, but she didn't say who it was. And so now she's talking and walking with this guy for an hour when it's a 3-minute walk. And Dennis is pretending to jump into traffic. So is this one of these just weird guys with a weird sense of humor to do that? So the person who emailed me this is their comment, something a controlling boyfriend would do to create drama. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I've never heard of that being a thing. Pretend to jump into traffic. Dennis called the police on Emma not to help her or for her concern, but to stop her from going anywhere. Wow, I haven't seen that theory before. But that is a go-to move of controlling boyfriends, or if he's not her boyfriend, someone who a stalker who wants to be or whatever. That's wild if that's what was the real reason. That's crazy. In that time, Emma's passports and belongings magically ended up in Emma's vehicle parked at the Chateau Hotel on 740 Burdett, where they walked from. What? Okay, so did she drop those things off first? I don't know what this person's insinuating, that someone else put her passport and belongings in the van as a means to stop her from leaving the country or whatever? Or anywhere? That's definitely weird. So Dennis Quay and his brothers and father all packed up and moved to Tofino, British Columbia, a few months after Emma disappeared. Unsure if Dennis's mom went, as she still works in town. I'm assuming Victoria is what they mean by town. So the person who emailed this seems to be a local. So, hmm. So apparently the Quays moved to Tofino, and some of Emma's friends said that her travel plans also included Tofino. Now we'll get into what her travel plans included according to her friends, or people in her circle who may or may not have been her friends. Court of public opinion posted, someone may have drugged her. Yes. That's possible as well. How would they know if she hadn't left them behind on purpose? We don't know, and we can't verify that. I went over all the issues with her van being towed, and yeah, it's just yeah, her van is definitely a huge question mark as well. There's just so much that doesn't add up in this case. Okay. So the thing is, if the Quay mother didn't go with them, I don't know what this user or this whoever emailed this to me is insinuating. Did she suspect that the Quays might have had something to do with what happened to Emma, and she didn't want to have anything to do with them? If that's even true, again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. So it also says that Dennis Quay's father just retired from working at an all-girls school. Besides the police, Dennis was the last person to interact with Emma before she went missing. Now, we probably shouldn't understate that because that is kind of major. That is major. He needs a brain fingerprint scan. Again, we need to bring out brain fingerprint scans for everybody. I think that would just solve the majority of these cases. So he was the last person to interact with Emma until William came forward. William's story is very sketchy, and I don't believe a word he says. I think William might even be Dennis Quay's brother or a friend of the Quay family. I mean, these are shocking revelations if true. I mean, I don't know if they'd be that blatant about it, but I mean, yeah, the whole Williams story was a little strange. Definitely strange. So here are some huge issues. Emma's friends talked about her travel plans. One said California, which would have been Mika, or unless there were plans to travel to Cali with somebody else. Another is to San Juan with a man she barely knew. Question mark, would that be the redfish owner, since he had gone to San Juan mid-October 2012? Was Emma invited? Question mark. Another was Salt Spring Island, which coincidentally is where Connor ended up. Another was Tofino, which is coincidentally where the Quay family ended up, possibly without the mother. Where's Emma? Question mark. Who knows, but I suspect the Quay family. One final note, Emma also had a stalker in Perth who was crazily obsessed. A few months after Emma vanished, this former stalker and his friends were busted for drugs in Ontario. One of the friends of her former stalker was Sheldon Kujak, a nut job who was in the newspaper for harassing and shooting the face off his ex-girlfriend and is known for threatening women with guns and knives. Huh. Is this all coincidental? Sheldon Kuyak is also mentioned in the Ottawa Citizen. This is an article by Gary Dimmock, published April 19th, 2010. He knows where I live and I want out. Tisha McMartin keeps an overnight bag by the door of her public housing unit, a high rise on Ottawa's east side. It's there in case she has to go into hiding on a moment's notice to avoid yet another visit from her tormentor. His name is Sheldon Kuyak, a violent sex criminal and sometime fugitive known for pulling guns and knives on women. The last time Kuyak visited his ex-fiancée in 2004, he was the target of a manhunt after fleeing a halfway house at the end of a prison sentence for shooting McMartin in the face. The bullet fragmented and left her with permanent nerve damage and pain. So the timeline is a little skewed here. It was 2004, a number of years before. But these are the kind of guys her former stalker is friends with, supposedly. Court of Public Opinion commented, it sounds like an underground network of drug addicts who all moved around a lot. Harder for cops to get to know you that way. So, another weird thing that we went over this before, Emma Fillipoff's brother and her mother were both arrested for possession of cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. And her mother blamed it all on her son. This was Matthew Fillipoff. Now, you know what's weird, though, did her brother have connections to her former stalker, who's friends with these guys that shoot women in the face? This is all very weird. Are these connections all coincidental? I don't know. So another friend of this guy is supposedly, I don't know how this individual found out that these guys are all friends. Obviously, we don't know whether that's true or not. But apparently, there's another friend is this guy, Roger Baudet, who was charged with second-degree murder and pled guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. So, supposedly her stalker, is that why she moved all the way across the country? To get away from these types of guys? Especially, again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm not claiming any of this is true. But if her brother, and with or without knowledge of her mother, is involved with these types of individuals, one of which is stalking her, others are shooting women in the face and murdering other guys, she wants to get away from that element. Why wouldn't her father speak out, though? Because supposedly there were plans with her to go to Japan with her father. I mean, and her father seems like a nice guy from the Fifth Estate documentary. So why wouldn't her father blow the whistle on this? Unless he's compromised in some way, unless maybe somebody threatened him to kill his children. I mean, who knows? But are all of these drug and criminal connections all coincidental? So the email finishes with on an even more ominous note. Another person who knows more is Patty, the friend of Emma from the shelter. And we went over Patty's interview on the previous episode. So what does everybody make of that? So if they're okay, was the shelter possibly involved with these fake cab drivers who also traffic drugs? If so, was there a criminal element network connection to Perth, where she came from across the whole country? She tried to get away from all of this. Is it possible she couldn't and was found involved with it yet again. I mean, all quite tragic if true, because if she's just trying to get away from this, but she potentially has what, at least four stalkers. And some might find that hard to believe, but if she's this really pretty girl who's just incredibly kind, that I mean, a lot of these scumbags would probably be attracted to somebody like that, especially if she's being nice to them because she's a very kind person who's just nice to everybody. So, I mean, it'd just be really tragic if her kindness was kind of what initiated her downfall. But the other thing we learned from this email, if this is all true, there seems to be a cycle here. Michaela, if something happened with Emma and Michaela's boyfriend, or even if the boyfriend wanted something to happen and nothing actually happened, Michaela could have been jealous regardless. Same thing with Mika. Same thing with the people at the Redfish Bluefish restaurant. Not one, but two. So not just the owner, but supposedly another coworker. Both of their wives were supposedly not fond of Emma, possibly for jealousy reasons. And what else? Now, what about this slumlord millionaire? If Emma's also seeing this other guy, how would he feel about that if he's a scumbag slumlord millionaire? Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. Maybe he's a good guy. I have no idea. He seems to be in City Hall a lot from what I could find online regarding dilapidated properties, but who knows? So we have not only do we have all of these people, but then we have at least one stalker who followed her across the entire country, and then possibly a few more local ones. This is really weird. If there was a connection between the Quays, like if the Quays were involved in some kind of drug dealing, is it possible there's a connection to her stalker in Perth who's friends with all these other criminals and possibly even her own brother and mother? Would that explain everything? Also, it would explain why she would be hesitant to go back home across the country if this criminal element involves her own family. And also, if the police and the shelter were also involved, I mean, this would just be unsolvable. It would explain why it's not solved, wouldn't it? Back Alley Scam Chat says he wasn't a stalker. Who are you referring to by he? We're discussing many different people here. I mean, the thing that we could hope for is that she did somehow get away. Because why would she come back, especially if her family was involved? Or let's say her family's not involved, but she thinks they're involved. Why would she come back? Which guy? Quay? Apparently, a few months after Emma vanished, her supposed former stalker in Perth and his friends were busted for drugs in Ontario. This included Sheldon Kuyak and Roger Boudet. Back alley scam chats. I didn't claim this is true information. This was an email that was sent to me. If you haven't checked out the previous 5 episodes, check them out. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. But if you're new to the case, a lot of people think Julian Hurd was the stalker that just happened to run into her across the entire country. Quay's story is a little suspect, whether he's a stalker or not. Supposedly, he either admitted or someone else said he was also watching Emma in the library. Regarding Emma's mother and brother being arrested for drug charges, I mean, that's all public info that was reported in many different newspapers. Again, maybe that's not true either, but it's a fact that they were arrested on those charges, true or not. But Emma's circle might have been a lot larger than most people think. So now, again, females are usually harmed by people known to them. So, I mean, this is not. It's not like she had no people that knew her. There's quite a lot of people involved here that knew her, regardless of whether they know what happened to her or were responsible for it. Back alley scam chats. It's not necessarily that he went to Victoria. It's that he ran into her there. Randomly on the street, supposedly. Victoria, British Columbia. I'm looking at the population here, 91,000. The greater Victoria area, almost 400,000. Vancouver, 675,000. But, I mean, you're saying there's nowhere to go across the country. Why would he go across the country in the first place? I mean, there's also, and why not go to Calgary? Why not go to any Edmonton or Winnipeg? I mean, or Toronto. He's going from Perth. I mean, you also have Quebec. I mean, why is he not going to any of these other Canadian cities? I mean, you seem to be completely missing the point on statistics. I mean, it's supposedly for business. I mean, Victoria has the nicest weather in Canada. Well, apparently it's not that nice because it's not one of the biggest cities. So, I mean, I don't know if he's claimed to be a millionaire who doesn't need money, in which case, why be limited to Canada in the first place? Yes, Victoria is somewhat small. But if he followed her to Chilliwack, it would be less suspect that he randomly runs into her if there's no people there. Because if there's only one main street, I mean, Chilliwack actually isn't even that small, 83,000 population. But if he followed her to some small town, I mean, that would be suspect because he followed her to the small town, but it would be less suspect to run into her on Main Street if there's only 3 streets in town. That's kind of the point there. No one goes to Winnipeg, but the population is 750,000. So clearly there's a lot of people there. I mean, you also got You also got Calgary. I mean, 1.3 million, over 1.3 million. I mean, there's, even if you're confined to Canada, there's so many other places he could have gone to for business. Yeah, everyone might want to go to Victoria, but clearly not that many people go there because there's all these other Canadian cities that are way bigger population and more business going on. So just statistically, the chances that I mean, look at all the other people that live in Perth that don't go to Victoria, that don't move to Victoria. Or all the other people in all these other cities with millions of populations that don't go to Victoria. I mean, come on, this isn't rocket science. You're right, population doesn't describe who is coming and going, but when people are moving, that's -1 from one area, +1 to another. I mean, this isn't rocket science. I mean, it's basic arithmetic. So, yeah, I mean, again, look at other missing persons cases. Like, even in cases where someone moves from a giant city to a giant city, like New York to LA, how many missing persons cases where does a former stalker or whatever run into the person who ends up disappearing on the day they disappeared or the day before, even? How often does that? Can you name a single other case that happened in, regardless of population size? Again, it might not be that crazy that they both went to Victoria. I'm talking about him running into her on the streets supposedly randomly. I mean, it's not just basic arithmetic, we're talking basic English here as well, back alley scam chats. Again, how many other cases has this happened in? You can't name a single one and you're still talking? Again, how many times has a stalker or supposed stalker moved to the same city across the country and randomly ran into the person on the day they disappeared? I don't know if you have some kind of mental issue, back alley scam chats. We're not talking just about moving to the same city. We're talking about a missing persons case where someone moved across the country to the same city and ran into the person, the missing person. That's not a loaded question, goof. I mean, I don't know if you have a mental disability or something. If it's that common, we're talking about statistics here. If it's that common for an alleged stalker to move across a country to the same city and run into a missing person on the day they disappeared or the day before, then there wouldn't just be one case. There'd be a bunch of cases like that. I didn't say he moved there that day, idiot, as you're accurately psychologically projecting. He ran into Emma. Yes, Court of Kabbalukun is scam chats. I mean, what's the scam, though? I mean, the goof's just humiliating himself, proving he's not even in a first grade English or math level. What's the scam here? Your subconscious is on point, back alley. Julian supposedly had some kind of brief friendship. We don't really know the exact nature of their relationship, but Julian supposedly. So again, you must be new to the case if you don't know this. Supposedly, Emma's father had to confront Julian because he was supposedly stalking Emma. So it's obviously a fact that Julian knew that Emma moved to Victoria. So if he's specifically looking for a job in Victoria because Emma is there, again, this isn't rocket science. Well, back alley, if you're that mentally deficient, though, you wouldn't be able to discern what is clear or not clear, because it's obviously not clear. You think someone calling out your obvious deficiency, so you're quacking and waddling, and you think calling you a duck when you're quacking and waddling is bullying while projecting how much of a loser you are? And humiliating yourself here? Again, back alley scam chats. Julian Hurd apparently was told off by Emma's father to stop bothering her. Now, Emma moved to Victoria. Julian could either stay in Perth or get a job in any city. But for whatever reason, he goes to Victoria, which by itself, that doesn't really, yeah, that could be coincidental, sure. He happens to run into her the morning she disappeared. I mean, how mentally disabled are you? I'll repeat it again. Julian ran, the guy that moved from her hometown 2,500 miles across Canada to the town that she ended up in Victoria. He ran into her. You're humiliating yourself whether or not you have the mental capacity to realize you're humiliating yourself, hence the mental disability. If you weren't mentally disabled, maybe you would know that you were humiliating yourself. Exactly, South to West. It's a heck of a coincidence, because not only is this a guy that she might have known, her father had to tell this guy to leave her alone. So he's on some kind of scale of stalker. We don't know if he was an extreme stalker. Maybe he wasn't really a stalker at all, but she was uncomfortable enough that her father had to tell this guy to leave her alone. Now, him moving to Victoria, maybe that's a coincidence. But what are the chances that on the morning she disappeared, he ran into her, in quotations? He didn't run into her any other day. He ran into her the morning she disappeared. The guy that her father told to leave her alone. And yet he couldn't run into her any other day. Very curious, isn't it? Very, very curious. Why didn't he run into her 20 other times? But he ran into her the morning she disappeared. We got to take it easy on back alley scam chats. Clearly there's a mental disability here. The guy's having a lot of trouble with basics. Coincidence theorists are just really attracted to this channel. I mean, there's no shortage in the comment section of these goofs hallucinating that even if Emma is having some kind of mental health episode, that there's this magical Dungeons and Dragons spell that would prevent anyone from harming her. It's a weird thing. A lot of these goofs, they just don't have the mental capacity to understand there's no magical Dungeons and Dragons protection spell, and her mental health issues, if she had any, might increase the chances of scumbags trying to take advantage of her, whether or not these scumbags were known to her previously or not. Because maybe it was a stalker who she didn't even know about, who wasn't one of these other guys. But it's just weird that she has all these other guys. According to who, back alley scam chats? According to him? Are you that mentally deficient that you think if Julian had something to do with her disappearance, that he wouldn't paint her to be having some kind of mental health issues, so she would run away or suicide? Are you completely new to true crime? You don't know this case or any other case, or just basic human psychology? If he was somehow responsible, what do you think he would say? I mean, just the level of gopher. I mean, back alley scam chats is bringing the comedy here. I mean, even though this is not a comedic topic, obviously very tragic, but the side effect a lot of these clueless goofs have is that if someone harmed Emma, they won't be brought to justice because these clueless goofs like back alley scam chats pretend and hallucinate there are these magical Dungeons and Dragons spells protecting people with mental health issues from being harmed by bad actors. How was he proven to have not... An unsolved case... Wait. Oh, man, I might have overestimated your... We might have to go back to preschool for this. According to the police, who don't solve most cases, what are you talking about? She disappeared, so how is it proven that someone had nothing to do with her disappearance if her disappearance isn't solved? Oh, man, back alley, you really should stop humiliating yourself. I'm starting to feel bad for you. An unproven case doesn't have proven exculpatory evidence, because Nobody knows where she is. So nobody, how would you know who, if she was, we don't know if she was harmed, of course. Maybe she escaped. But if she was harmed, how would anybody know who had anything to do with what? Again, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you just get a kick out of humiliating yourself. But maybe she was having mental health issues. Again, you don't seem to have the mental capacity to grasp that there's no magical Dungeons and Dragons spell protecting people with mental health issues from being harmed. In fact, it probably increases their chances that people would take advantage of them. Not rocket science. Well, clearly you haven't, because I went over it, but if you're just that deficient in basic human psychology, we went over him extensively in the early episodes. Police saying someone was cleared in an unsolved case doesn't mean anything, because the case is unsolved, first of all. Second of all, you can go through tons of cases where previously cleared individuals were the ones who ended up being guilty, so that doesn't mean anything. I mean, if so, supposedly she has this many stalkers, who would react calmly in that kind of situation? Especially if she did actually have some kind of mental health issue. Obviously, this would all exacerbate it. Listen to the beginning of this podcast, Back Alley Scam Chats. You might want to get an English tutor too, so you can keep up instead of humiliating yourself. But you kind of hijacked this podcast. But this is why I try to preempt. Even at the beginning of the podcast, I was talking about people exactly like you, these Dunning-Kruger goofs who just, they don't have the basics down. Exactly, that's why you should do it. But if you're not even on a preschool English or logical or psychological level, all your spending time on it, looking it up, doesn't mean anything. Yes, you are a joke. Your subconscious has you pegged, kid. All right, we got to give this goof a timeout. So, yeah, he's the goof that I'm talking about. Like, just these people that deny justice or honest investigation to potential victims. I mean, I didn't really want to put him in timeout just because he was illustrating the points of his deficiency so well. Because at the beginning of the podcast, I kind of went over this. It's just, these people, even unintentionally, I mean, maybe the goof has good intentions, but denying potential victims justice and denying honest investigation, I mean, that's just pretty disgusting behavior. Obviously, every single victim or potential victim deserves justice and honest investigations with integrity at the forefront. So clearly, she had all these stalkers. Clearly, Julian is quite shady, even if he had nothing to do with this. Again, I didn't claim he did. Just, basic English. I didn't claim Julian was responsible. But to think, I mean, if it was that common for someone to move across the country after someone who they might have possibly stalked, or the father thought there might be some issues in potential stalking, he just happens to run into a missing person the morning of their disappearance. That's a little weird to me. I don't know. I mean, some of these coincidence theorists, I guess the mental deficiency is just so extreme. Now, in all the cases in all of human history of missing persons, you could probably say maybe a couple of them are unrelated. Is this the lottery winner? Did Julian win the lottery and his particular sighting really is the coincidence? Maybe it is. Maybe this is the one coincidence. David stated Robin Kimpton had a nice girlfriend when Emma worked at Hotel 760. James got Emma a job at hotel. I thought James Emma shared a big room at the hotel where she worked. Hey, which James are you talking about? Are you talking about her father, James? Oh, Emma's friend, James. In which circle was this James? Because there seem to be a couple of Jameses. And also, I don't know if you just got here, David, but we went over an email that was sent to me that stated apparently there was a lot of information that has not been public, but apparently Emma, while she was staying at the hotel, she also spent nights on Connor's boat. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like even when she stayed places, she wasn't 100% there. So James worked for Robin as well. Yeah, there's a lot of circles here. I mean, Emma's circle is pretty wide, overlapping other circles as well. In the previous few episodes, I also talked about her connections to, I don't even remember, there was some connection to issues with homeless camps and advocates. A woman who apparently the city targeted, Emma might have known her as well. And then, of course, all these other friends, Michaela, Mika, Robin, and then also Connor and the people at Redfish Bluefish restaurant. And again, just going back to basic FBI statistics, when a female is harmed, it's usually at the hands of someone known to her. So, just going over all this new info, I don't know if enough true investigation was done regarding all these circles. Court of public opinion, homeless camps are the wild, wild west, yes. Well, there was supposedly some kind of targeting by the city as well. I went over that in previous episodes that seemed kind of shady and weird connections. But yeah, Kimpton, I don't know. Like, would they even? It's just once you get into these types of guys, these slumlord millionaires, if there's a drug connection there as well, I mean, that's problematic. I'm not saying he was responsible for anything, but in general, there are cases where certain slumlords are also involved in drugs and crime, etc., prostitution, whatever. I mean, this is big business at many hotels at various levels. So if there's also some kind of corruption with the city going on, possibly involving the police, they might not be motivated to solve this thing. Yes, court of public opinion, they facilitate. Yeah, so I don't know if this can all be written off. It seems problematic to write this all off as coincidences. The coincidence stack is really high in this case. Yes, huge coincidence stack. Yeah, these overlapping circles. So I would say this. I don't know if they were responsible, but it does seem like her friends would know more. I don't know which friends of which circle, but if they told stories specifically, oh, Emma talked about traveling to all these different places, so then they'll never find her. I mean, if she was harmed, and she's somewhere in the area, they would be pointing the finger everywhere. They maybe even would be adding in fake sightings to get people to look further away. Anybody else have any further thoughts on Emma's circle and what this could all mean? I mean, even on helpfindemmafillipoff.com, I mean, it says here 3 friends in BC. Emma had been experiencing ongoing stress related to feeling harassed by someone she had a bad experience with years prior in Campbell River, where she studied culinary arts in 2008 2009. She did not provide details, nor did she reveal his identity to her friends and in her journal. So, it also states by early November 2012, she had grown distant, and friends noticed a dramatic change in her behavior and personality. She refused invitations to go on adventures, canceled a trip to Mexico with a friend at the last minute, and generally seemed frightened to go anywhere that wasn't the pier or the shelter. So, okay, what if this previous stalker? So, okay, how many stalkers did she have? I mean, we're talking, there's up to 2 from her hometown area and their circle of drug dealers and friends. There's at least 2 more in Victoria. There's this guy from Campbell River. Did this guy make a new identity and maybe she was somebody he was interacting with online? Is this the predator of the previous theory, pretending to be somebody else? Yeah, there's a lot of missing people in that area. So the other thing I'm thinking, is she growing distant from this circle because either subconsciously or her intuition, whatever, that they're not really her friends? What is going on? The other thing is, even if the staff at the shelter is not involved, well, yeah, that's the other thing. Court of public opinion. Shelters, unfortunately, are also involved in trafficking because a lot of times they're dealing with transient people or homeless people that people aren't going to miss immediately, so they would be easier to traffic without attention being brought. Now, I'm not claiming that's what happened here, but I mean, all of this is just really suspect. Very, very suspect. And it seems like they're hiding behind privacy laws. So it says even the staff at the shelter contacted the police to request a mental health check. The staff explained the situation over the phone, and police, rather than visit the shelter to assess Emma, they told the staff to call back if they noticed any more odd behavior. The staff did not call back. So, was she targeted? Were the police already aware of her? I mean, this is a really dark theory, of course, but if she was targeted, and then now her mother's coming, was there an effort by criminals or possibly traffickers to move up the timeline to get her? I mean, again, I don't know how these people work. Obviously, different rings work different ways, but if this was kind of a high intel operation where they were just gathering information about who might not be missed if they were trafficked, yeah, that's really sad, court of public opinion. The shelter was supposed to be the safe place, yes. I mean, supposedly she did feel safe there, but then again, there are the rumors that she was going to be kicked out and all these other things. Says here, a close acquaintance reported seeing a very anxious Emma by the harbor a day or two before she vanished. When he asked their circle of friends what was wrong, they explained she was concerned about her mother arriving in Victoria. Here's the other thing, too. Clearly, these friends are in the know. So, this circle, there's an acquaintance here, there's a circle of friends, they're not named here, but clearly they know what's going on in her life in general. She's not that aloof where they know that her mother is not only that her mother is arriving, but that she's concerned about it. See, this makes me think this investigation was just really, really poor because it seems like her friends know a lot more than has been said. Now, if the police are involved, maybe this really was all investigated or intentionally not investigated. Also, it says here, according to witnesses, Emma returned to the shelter 6 p.m. that evening, was informed by staff at Sandy Merriman that her mother was on the way. She became visibly upset and anxious and quickly stormed out of the shelter. Another resident tried to pursue her outside but was unable to catch up to her. It is unclear how staff knew Shelley was on her way, as she did not tell them she was coming. See, this is very, very sketchy. Shelley arrived at the shelter at 11 p.m., learned that Emma did not claim her bed that night. Shortly after midnight, the shelter staff called police to report Emma as a missing person. Okay, so how did the staff know that her mother was on her way? So, is there a missing link here between the staff at the shelter and Emma's circle of friends? Are they communicating kind of behind Emma's back? Again, this could be with her best intentions in mind or not. I'm not claiming either is true or untrue. But how did they know? Court of Public Opinion states RCMP are notorious for being bad people doing bad things. Well, unfortunately, that's law enforcement in most countries. Power corrupts. I mean, there's definitely a lot of missing pieces here because, because Emma apparently changed her mind about wanting to come home a few times. So this could be possibly mental health issues, or are her friends or one of her friends or supposed friends influencing these decisions? Also, for on the main website, it says some people think Emma visited the library sometime around noon. I mean, wouldn't this be very easy to corroborate? Hmm. Also, apparently there were up to 3 reports, at least 2 of which actually called the police in the afternoon because they thought Emma was looking confused and lost. So the police, again, if the police are involved, it would make sense, or if they're just that apathetic. I mean, I don't know. This is all very weird. Also, if the tax company isn't even a legit taxi company, what does that mean? Because if this is a non-legit tax company, a taxi company possibly involved in trafficking or drugs, they interact with her and then with Shelley as well? The other thing I kind of mentioned before, did someone else set up the situation with her van for whatever reason? Just to cause problems and maybe swoop in to try to help her while not really helping her. I mean, those were my thoughts. Something doesn't add up with the van either. There's issues with her van. So, yeah, I mean, we went over her circle, a lot of people who may have not been investigated properly. So, the Quay family supposedly leaves the area, but not immediately after her disappearance, supposedly months later, but not with the mother, possibly. Again, coming from this email that I've been going over. We have, seems like a trail of males that Emma's female friends were interested in that might have preferred Emma instead. I mean, we have jealous wives at the restaurant she worked at. And then we also supposedly have this slumlord millionaire. Now, I mean, there's a lot here. Then we have at least two stalkers from her hometown who are connected to drug dealers and violent criminals and murderers. We have Emma's mother and brother being arrested for drug charges, regardless of whether they're true or not. I mean, there's so many connections here. We have one of these stalkers running into her the morning of her disappearance. So, yeah, I mean, this is all very tough to rectify. One of the most mind shocking cases of all time, no doubt. I mean, this is a haunting one that just stays with you. I'll be doing follow up episodes if there's any more information, but I just wanted to go over this email because it seems like there's a lot here that hasn't previously been gone over and investigated, and there's quite a few people in Emma's circle. So, unlike other cases, you have a ton of people here that may or may not have known what happened. Thanks South to West. Thanks the Court of Public Opinion, everybody else in here. Hope everybody found another edition of Mind Shock True Crime interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, help keep up awareness in this case and other cases, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.